Good morning, and thank you very much indeed for the opportunity to speak at the conference today. I thought it would be interesting to share some ideas about getting wellbeing messages across to your audience, whoever that might be. The importance of using different channels to get your message across with a real emphasis on collaboration and networking, and then to share some campaigns that I've been involved in through RoSPA that could be used in your networks. So that ripple effect of sharing what works across our communities. And then finally, some ideas for creating a comms toolkit that you could indeed use to raise your own profile and or your organisation's wellbeing strategy. The same pattern can, I believe, be applied to both. And then the final element of the presentation will be about the valuation of the impact of your message, again, making reference to some examples that I've been involved in over recent months. So for me, this quotation, I don't know who wrote it, but it certainly has resonated with me in terms of my role at work. And it is, and as an occupational safety and health practitioner, professional. So every next level of your life will demand a different version of you. So how do we keep our messages relevant? How do we keep ourselves relevant? And what are the emerging issues that our members and award winners are tackling? How do we ensure that health, safety and wellbeing messages are heard in amongst this COVID noise we've been subject to over the last year to 18 months? And what do we need to do differently? I've endeavoured to pause, reflect and reset at work and think about how our policy work remains relevant through the COVID noise. And it's also required a little bit of reimagining about how we connect to our communities, given that seismic shift in how we have related to the world of work. So for me, it's really important that in terms of being visible and connected, that people know what you and your organisation stand for. So for me, it's very much about more lives free from serious accidental injury through this exchange of life-enhancing knowledge and skills. And every session on this conference over the 2 days is very much a conduit for the exchange of these life-enhancing messages and also develop people's skill sets. From a RoSPA perspective, we're very much about a whole person, whole life approach, where we recognise that health, safety and wellbeing are life course issues, and that seismic shift in what work looks like for many of us has changed. The term living and work resonates with me. So how do we recognise this and its impact on wellbeing as we build back better? We should also reflect here on the impact of the wellbeing of those key and essential workers who've delivered throughout the pandemic. So when you're clear what you stand for, collaborate with like-minded people and organisations. Prevention is invariably easier than cure. And that ripple effect of collaboration, if you have a wellbeing strategy that works, please share. I recently presented at a virtual event between the UK and wider world based in Singapore through a connection in Singapore. And one of our keynote speakers spoke about corridors in the cloud. So if you think about sort of the ripple effect across the water that connects us across the world, and then in the atmosphere above us, the corridors and the clouds again that act as these conduits for the exchange of life-enhancing knowledge and skills. It certainly is an interesting way to think about how we connect with practitioners around the world. And as a reader of Isaac Asimov's science fiction and popular science when I was in my sort of late teens, early 20s, I was very much interested in his take on the world. And this quotation that you see in front of you now is from the 1950s, 60s, and I believe is as relevant now as then. Though this change, this continuing change, an inevitable change that is a dominant factor in society today. So as professionals and practitioners, we're consistently looking at the emerging issues, the emerging trends, and how we can recalibrate ourselves to ensure that we can deliver the right type of intervention that saves lives across the world. So essentially, for me, on an annual basis, I always start out with my ducks in a row. You know, the health, safety, and wellbeing strategies that we're going to take forward within a RoSPA context is very much about having our ducks in a row and how we're going to set about, based on data, sharing information that saves lives. And then last year we had this seismic shift of COVID and a wave of wellbeing issues linked to the pandemic ensued. These are the top keywords from a World Health Organization analysis of the infodemic, which is the sort of technical word they use for this COVID noise that we've been working through. So the infodemic associated with COVID. And from memory, this was undertaken in the summer months last year. And many of these words linked to our focus on health, safety and well-being, acute health impact, data, work, and perhaps too early in this analysis to recognise the impact of long COVID, a significant impact on our co-workers, families and communities. Well-being on a whole person, whole life basis certainly has to consider long COVID. It is pretty new, but the physical, functional and psychological symptoms are gradually being recognised, and persistent fatigue is only one of its major effects. So that links me to what RoSPA's key themes are. At the outset of the pandemic, we thought, how are we going to keep the connection with our members and award winners alive? So we considered the importance of pausing to prioritise our people and recognise the fact that we need to remain COVID secure, yet situationally aware, and professionals and practitioners around the world will recognise the importance of managing the situational hazards and risks that exist so that people don't have these old accidents that we understand how to prevent. We recognise at RoSPA that we need a life course approach to health, safety and well-being. So good work is good for you. It maintains your functional capacity. But when we move on to think about fatigue, and I mentioned it just a moment ago with respect to being a persistent symptom of long COVID, fatigue, mental health issues, the emotional depletion and contagion associated with the pandemic. RoSPA's focus has been on fatigue and lone workers, especially those who drive for work for quite a long period of time now, because the evidence is there in the data that we need to manage these issues. So I would suggest that you might want to consider having fatigue and those who drive for work, and perhaps also those who do shift work, because our focus for your own organisation going forward. Fatigue, driving and shift work is a dangerous mix. And another theme that I'm working on at the moment is the need to address the challenge of falls from height. Quite simply, these are accidents that don't need to happen and have a significant impact on well-being. So having established what your key themes are, keep pushing these messages out there no matter what is happening around about you. The push and re-push when emphasis is needed, as we have done with the COVID secure messaging through the pandemic. Organisations need to focus on wellbeing messages that can cut through this noise. So as professionals and practitioners in the health, safety and wellbeing community, in addition to pushing messages, we've got to push the boundaries within our networks. So for me, in 2020, I set out with the aim in mind, or the end in mind, of making our work more visible and connected. And you see here is on my top right, it might be on your top right, the sparrow, that small bird, you know, that connects my thought processes to a book called Regulatory Craft by Professor Malcolm Sparrow. So the importance of looking at your data, working out what you're going to do, and then sticking at it long enough to make a difference. That's one way you can identify what wellbeing messages you want to pursue for your organisation. So being visible and connected, hugely important. And in the bottom right there, we have the ripple effect of safety beyond the workplace. Certainly fatigue and driving doesn't stop at the curb. It does move beyond the workplace and onto our roads and into our family lives and our leisure time. So the ripple effect of what we understand, what works in terms of messaging in the workplace, how do we get that out into safety beyond the workplace? And then this year, the focus being on ability and visibility. The ability element of it certainly relates to how we're connecting, RoSPA are connecting with individual professionals and practitioners to help them improve their personal visibility through social media, through connecting to peers, through mentoring on an individual basis, and through our awards and membership approach through business to business learning. So that the pebble in the water, how far does a ripple extend and how many lives can we enhance as a consequence of that? So building and pushing the envelope, I think, is fundamentally important as we reimagine our roles as occupational safety professionals. So to give you a wellbeing example, as professionals and practitioners, I do think we work very well in collaboration. So seek out these opportunities to collaborate. There are huge opportunities there for you, and I would encourage you to move confidently into collaboration, because it's certainly these connections that sustain us in difficult times. So RoSPA are connected to the Sleep Charity Advisory Board, and given that we are talking about wellbeing today, I thought I would like to give you some insights into sleep as a life course issue. It's also the fact that lack of sleep is a significant wellbeing issue. So the Teen Sleep Hub is a project that's been developed by the Sleep Charity, working with teens for teens who really wanted to know the why about why good sleep is good for you, how much sleep you actually need, and all done in a way to dispel any myths and really help people develop better sleep habits. So it's very much a whole person, whole life topic, sleep, and it is about thinking how you can manage it on a personal basis. So just to give you some insights here, here's one question from a reader of the downloadable, free to download ebook. It was anticipated that this would be, the target was to have this downloaded 400 times. Today it's been downloaded 27,000 times. So certainly well worth considering for your organisation, and as sleep a life course topic, perhaps as for your families also. So one of the questions was about tips on how to get to sleep easily, which then allows more time to sleep, so I feel more energised and motivated the next day when I wake up. That's a universal question, and this resource provides the answer. 95% of the respondents looking at the ebook said that the content was good or excellent, and 2/3 of the readers said that their sleep had improved significantly as a consequence. So there's a resource created through collaboration with the messages that can help you extend understanding of sleep hygiene and fatigue in your organisation. And then in the bottom of the slide there, the fatigue and driving is one of the fatal four. And again, this is another example of moving confidently into collaboration. Lee Pounder, who's a work colleague, is Regional Director of SPL Powerlines. He didn't hesitate when asked to support the Road Safety Scotland campaign, Driving Tired Kills. It's comparable to drink driving tired. You have impaired driving performance, and the accidents are 50% more likely to cause death or serious injury. So Lee and his colleagues collaborated with Road Safety Scotland to create a video to explain the issues about managing fatigue whilst driving for work. This video was then the most watched of the campaign, reaching 400,000 people. So that ripple effect again about collaborative working and the right messages that can save lives. I'd like to take a moment just to mention a report produced by the World Health Organization and International Labour Organization. It's entitled Long Working Hours Kill, and is very clear that working more than 55 hours per week is a major risk factor for disease and death. In hard fact, 745,000 deaths from stroke and heart disease were recorded as a consequence of long working hours in 2016, and that's a 29% increase since the year 2000. So again, think about how many hours people are working on behalf of your organisation, and perhaps how you can more effectively manage that risk, because it should indeed be managed as any other risk to your organisation. So evaluation, from a RoSPA perspective, it's a very important discipline to evaluate the difference that your work makes. And as a baseline, we would say, be confident that what you put in will make a difference. However, I think it's important to remember that the story can actually be more valuable. So encourage people to use their voice and tell their personal story. This linked to their wellbeing agenda, their health, safety and wellbeing agenda, but really to tell their story so that people can identify what works and what works best for them. So, what's in your toolkit? Your toolkit is your skill set. It's your connections to others. It's your ability to network. It's how visible you are. And I think it's underpinned by your drive. So take a moment to pause, reset and reflect on your own skills, and then reimagine how you can share your wellbeing messages. I would suggest that sleep, fatigue and driving are very much appropriate for organisations to be sharing at this time, and certainly that getting the message right saves lives. So use or adapt the Scorsa Comms Toolkit. This communications toolkit was developed earlier on this year and focuses on occupational driving. There is an element on driver health there also. We have our cars MOT'd. What about the health of our drivers? So you can use it as a baseline to develop your own. It encourages the use of social media, blogging, the writing of journal articles, and each of those can be used by yourself to increase your visibility and use your voice. So why don't you pause, reset and reimagine, and let us know how you get on using your voice to increase your visibility within our connected OSH world. Thank you.